All right. I am thrilled. I've been waiting so long for this to welcome to the Sassaga podcast, Catherine O'Connell. So Catherine, tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, Helen, hi. Thank you so much. And before we start, congratulations on your 100,000 downloads of the Sassaga podcast. Woo! Very exciting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, amazing. I'm just inspired by you and what you're doing. So I am a lawyer in town. I'm a multi-award winning Tokyo-based senior business lawyer. I'm a coach, mentor, and a law podcaster. I have local and international business, corporate and commercial and business law is what I normally do. Provide lots of legal services, coaching and mentoring to legal professionals, executives and diplomatic level MC events as well. I've recently done a couple of those, as you've probably heard with the New Zealand Prime Minister when she visited Japan. I'm also currently sitting on 2 stock exchange listed international companies as their independent board member. So that's sort of me. What I'm about is my mission really is to make law more accessible to people in Japan. Try and demystify the barriers and make it easier for people to hire a lawyer, because getting in touch with a lawyer is hard. Yeah. And I try to do that. So whether people are sort of running a small business or a large business, they need to really hire a lawyer at some point. And I just try to break down the barriers, not use the legal jargon, make it easier for people to hire. So that's me in a nutshell.
Absolutely fabulous. I love it so much. And I love that you start off by saying that you've won multiple awards. And this is kind of related to what I'd like to get into a little bit later in the show. Part of the reason I really wanted to have you share your wisdom and inspiration with the listeners is that I see you as someone who is so great at putting yourself out there, at doing things, at networking. And this is something that a lot of Sassaga podcast listeners struggle with. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, word of the year. So what is your word of the year for 2022?
Yes, that's a great question. It's expansion.
Oh my goodness, it's the same as mine.
No,
I didn't even realize that.
Really? That is amazing.
Yes.
Wow. I did not know that. That is really cool. I mean, I find words of the year so much give me focus, right? They give me focus, they anchor me. Oh my goodness, it's the same word. That's so cool. Wow. All right. They make me just sort of concentrate on something for the whole year around that topic. And for me, expansion, I'm really interested to hear what you say, but for me, it's not about doing many things. It's about doing a few things really well and deeply, right?
Yes.
And so do it deeper, do it wider. It really brings meaning to my life. And I'm not sure if you do, but I have the word on a trinket, which I keep on my wallet, which I happen to have as a visual expression here. So on my wallet, this year's one is there, last year's one is also there. But this is actually Jane Nakata made this one for me this year. Last year I asked for my own, but this is a kind of thing that I think off the whim, jewelry, Erin Lamattery creates.
Oh my goodness! Could you give us the link for that? We'll put it in the show notes.
So I have it so that it's on my wallet. So when I open my wallet, is this due to my expansion? Is this going to help my expansion? Is it what I really want to be doing? And I also have it on the wall in front of me, behind the laptop that I'm looking at right now. So it's there in front of me. Yes. So expansion builds on previous words, which were intentional last year, next level the year before that, and audacious the year before that. So I love the word, and thank you for asking me, because I would not have known. Yours is the same.
I know. So last year for me was ripple, because I was like, it was 2021. It was a tough year. I wasn't really thinking fully expansion, but let's ripple a bit, let's have that little ripple effect going out. And then at the beginning of this year, I came into 2022 really energized. I'd taken December off. So I was like so energized, like, okay, it's time for expansion. And also what you talked about just a moment ago, when you said it's not about doing lots of things, but it's doing a few things and doing them really well or deeply. And I'm not sure if you heard that I'm writing my second book, which is also very much about this, the whole idea of less effort and more impact. And I'm exactly as you're saying, even though I'm focusing on expansion, I'm really like looking at, okay, how do I narrow down? How do I do less so that I can do better.
Yeah, it almost sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? That why would expansion not mean doing many, many things? But it's not. It's the opposite. So I love that. I look forward to your book. That's going to be fabulous.
Yes. Oh, so exciting. So okay, so I want to make sure that we keep this episode within a reasonable amount of time, because as I mentioned to you before we started recording, I feel like we could just talk for hours and hours and hours. Let's go on to the Sassaga success cycle. And of the 4 phases, which is the one that you've had a real challenge with not necessarily recently, one that you've had a challenge with that you've overcome. So if we look at phase 1, self-care, or planning, or communication, or productivity, what's the one that you want to focus on today?
I think it would be self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In 2019, I weighed like 30 kilograms more than I do now.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
That's one thing. So self-care was about physically making myself healthy. But in 2020, when it was so busy, and my word of the year was next level, I just thought next level meant doing everything you possibly could, signing up for everything, being the panelist, being the moderator, being online, and doing so much. And that was okay, but it wasn't okay because it impacted my health. And I got off one webinar that it was 3 in a row, and as I closed down the webinar, my left eye, there was a burst and I lost the sight in that eye, and I couldn't believe it. I was petrified, absolutely frantic. So what's happened is that it's turned out to be okay. It was a burst blood vessel, but quite a big one. And over the last couple of years with medicine, I've worked out how to manage that. I still see it in my eye, but it's something that reminds me every single day, Helen, to think about self-care. If I can't see, I can't do my work.
Exactly.
I won't be able to read documents. I won't be able to do all kinds of things. And so self-care is where it's at.
Absolutely. That's exactly why that's phase 1 of the Sassaga success cycle.
And yeah, exactly. My recently been just reminder, if I can quickly say, one of my lawyer friends was absolutely under lots and lots of work, and she woke up one day and her hearing has gone, like right now. And it just shows you how the amount of work can severely impact your health, and self-care is really important. So now she's trying to get better, but it's come to that. And it took me that kind of thing as well to have an impact on my health, to bring me back to what really matters. And that's health is first. If you don't have that, you'll be paying for your health in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. I'm also thinking about we recently had Brittany Arthur on the Sassaga podcast, and she was talking about a situation where there was a department in an organization, and the sick leave was increasing at the end of every month because there was a situation that was causing everybody stress. And thanks to her work going in there and supporting that organization, they managed to find the root cause of that stress and resolve that. I mean, it's like, wow. So important.
Yeah.
So that was related to communication, which is the next thing that I wanted to talk about with you.
Right.
Is because communication is very much related to this whole idea of networking, putting yourself out there. Like every time, I feel like every time I see one of your posts on LinkedIn or on Instagram or whatever, it's like, here's another award, here's another award, or, connecting with these like really amazing people. So, and, this is something that very often, especially the women in my network have come to me and said, well, how can we do this? Especially, a lot of the corporate women, they're encouraged to do it, but they don't know how to do it, or they feel a little bit, they don't have the confidence to do it. So
right. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't think I had the confidence to do it originally. To be honest, people would think I'm such a confident person, but all through my life, I've had a lack of confidence. But through doing various activities to push myself, and that is get a coach, it is stand up in front of people and speak, even if I didn't want to,
Mm-hmm.
or thought I couldn't, and
Mm.
just nudging out each time a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I did a week ago win an award, which was Foreign Lawyer of the Year. And that was one I was just really after. And it's, sitting behind me here on the screen as we talk on YouTube. And that meant a lot to me because it's endorsed what I've been doing all along, right? I've been communicating. I've been trying things. Maybe each of the things that I've communicated hasn't worked, but I've been trying. So if you don't try, you're certainly going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think being out there and just giving things a go has really helped. And communicating our voice and our values is really important to show other people and inspire other people. And at the awards last week, what really touched me was that people came up to me afterwards and said that speech was so inspiring. And all I said is what I just told you now, is that I went out there, I decided I would do something. I said what I would do and I did what I would say, what I said. That's what I want to try and say. And it was inspirational. So I've been thinking a lot about inspiration and inspirational things recently. Even in that room amongst lawyers, there were the hotel staff. A staff member after, I think I wrote this on social media, she came up to me as I was getting my cloak, my coat from the cloakroom. And she said, I listened to your speech. It was so inspirational. And this is a hotel person standing there.
Yeah.
She's not even the intended audience for the message, but she was inspired. So
Wow.
that really matters to me. But it's coming from being just being, blowing your trumpet is okay if it's a healthy trumpet. It's not with arrogance. It's telling your story. It's telling other people's stories, and just seeing how it lands with people. You can only try. So over time, I've just tried different ways of expressing myself. And the podcast has been a great way because it's someone else's story that I tell, but I'm telling it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing you can do, is that you tell other people's stories, but through that person's stories, others can hear about you and what you stand for and your voice. So communicating in that way is very important. And I'm not sure if that answers all of your question, but you may have some other ones. But I mean, it's easy to be inspired by people. It's easy to have inspiration, but to be inspirational and inspire others takes a lot of dedication. And so you have to give it a try and keep going to do it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how very often people look at, they were seeing you giving that speech and they see you as you are now. They see you as the inspirational, as the confident person, and they don't consider what has led up to that.
True.
Right.
True.
That's it. So if you could go back in time and give advice to the you in those very, very early days when you were still in that lacking confidence and you hadn't actually gone out and done those things, what would you say to yourself?
I think I would say, have a look for some people around you who you can see as are doing quite well or inspiring, and talk with them. And I wouldn't have had the confidence maybe to do that at that time, but I wish that's the advice I would have given to myself. Talk with those people, because if I think about who's coming to me now to ask about exactly this question you've just asked me, it is people who have seen me and had the courage and bravery to actually ask me for a Zoom call and have a talk and ask me 4 or 5 questions. Wow. And anybody who cares about somebody else will give you that time. Yeah. So my thing would be, ask somebody, they're only going to say no. Yes. And you know what? They probably won't. Exactly. And I've got shivers now just saying this to you, because the recent people who have been law students and a couple of other younger women, Japanese women, have just said, look, I just want to have a talk with you for 15 minutes. We'll set a timer. I just have 4 or 5 questions. Can I ask you? Am I going to say no?
And they said set a timer as well?
Yeah, just to make sure that they're respectful of my time. And I think that's really generous of them. But look to somebody in the environment you can see who is doing what you want to do. And they have all been on this journey, and they all still struggle, and they all have a lack of confidence. I still have that. Will this hit? Will this be okay? Will people listen? Will they care? Yeah. But people normally will give you the time. So ask. Absolutely. Yeah. It feels hard to ask, but please do. I'd recommend.
It is. It's, and what's the worst thing? They say no. You reminded me of this is years ago when I was looking up to somebody in the work organization overseas, and I decided to reach out to her and ask her if she would consider mentoring me. And I was so nervous about doing this and like the rejection and all that.
Yeah.
And I wrote that, and she's like, oh my goodness, I was just so happy to receive your message. And yes, of course, I'd be delighted to. And I was like, wow, it was so easy. But that, we make that first stage so hard for ourselves. So
we do. Yeah. And honestly, the worst can be no. And so if it's no, well, you try somebody else. You're not, and that's the other point, is don't be put off by the first no or the second or the third.
Yeah.
And that's how I've managed to win some awards, is they weren't successful on the first and second try. And this latest award was my third try. But if you give up, you're not going to get any further. But if you keep trying, you'll learn. And from that person who said no, you can always ask why.
Yes.
And they will say, look, I'm so busy at the moment, or I'm not good at that kind of mentoring. I could recommend somebody else. You don't know what might come from that no.
Exactly. Because often you'll think, oh, it's because of me, but it's not. It's probably got nothing to do with you at all.
Nothing to do with you. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love this so much. So another kind of little topic that I'd like to get into, which is kind of related a bit to the self-care that we were discussing earlier on, is let's go this one first. What drains you? What do you find like really sort of a pain or difficult in your day-to-day life?
I think it could be when I'm facilitating or presenting or running a meeting, it's probably the people who don't ask a question, or who act very passively.
Oh, interesting.
I find that very draining for me. I like to be around people who at least give something a try and ask a question and make themselves noticed. I think if you are consistent and intentional in your behavior and you ask questions, you get noticed. So one of my mantras is never attend a meeting unless you plan to ask a question.
Exactly.
It will always make you stand out. People will remember you. So what drains me is when I've gone to so much effort for the speakers who might be the panelists, or for me as the person who's emceeing, and people will not react or ask a question or show any visual kind of change in their look or interest. And that drains me, because there's so much effort in there. If people are coming and turning up for a meeting, it would be great if people can show some interest and, be for the people who are there, who've shown up. I think it reflects on you if you don't. So for me, that would be maybe it's not what you thought would come out, but that is quite draining.
That is great. Now, this could be a really important message for a lot of listeners, because they might be going to meetings or events or whatever and sitting there and kind of, passively listening to things, and they're taking a lot out of it, but they're not necessarily showing it.
Yeah.
So that impacts you.
So just the one thing to, when you're going to that meeting, think of a question to put in the chat, or really burst out of your comfort or discomfort zone. To say something. You will be remembered. I know one of my podcast guests did that on a webinar. She ended up meeting the speaker a bit later and asked for a job, and the person hired her because they remembered her literally asking the question.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's so powerful. And I think a lot of the time people are like, oh, my question's not good enough, or whatever, those kind of things are.
Yeah. And again, that's right. People think that, but please don't hold back, because there will be others wanting to ask the same question and thinking the same. So if you are bold and brave and do ask that question, great. And anyway, the person who's going to respond to you is not going to say, that's a dumb question.
Right.
Oh, who would ask that? No one is going to say that. They will gracefully answer your question, and you'll never know that if it's a bad question or not, because no one's going to tell you that.
Right. Yeah.
And people will remember that you stood up and asked a question.
And it's a good question, because it was a chance for you to step out of your comfort zone and grow, and help the speaker at the event as well. So let's switch it then. So we've done the draining. What energizes you most?
Oh gosh, I think at the moment, first thing that springs in my mind is my podcasting, and like you're doing here, having interviews with people. And for me, it's women lawyers who are working in Japan and telling their stories, because there's so much wisdom locked up in those stories that never get told. And that's a quote from a book, which I'm happy to tell you about later. But that super energizes me, more than I ever thought it would. But I love that idea of being able to bring out other people's stories that they hide away or they don't think are important, but everybody's story is important. And when I get off those recordings, I feel super energized and enlightened, and I feel like I can just go and conquer the world. So talking with other people and sharing what they have to tell fully energizes me. I love it.
Brilliant. So I want to ask you a question that I know you often ask your podcast guests, and I think usually at the beginning of the episode, but we got so focused on the whole word of the year. But the one I just love the question that you ask about, we're talking now online, but if we were meeting in person, Catherine, where would we be meeting?
Oh, well, my latest go-to place is the Toranomon Edition Hotel.
Oh, okay.
It is absolutely beautiful. It has inside various spaces that are in different colors, gem colors. So they have a blue room, which is a sapphire blue coverings, and they have a green room, which is emerald green fabrics and velvet.
Wow.
They also have just opened a gold bar that is gold and black, Art Deco. But I love sitting in the lobby bar. The sunlight streams in. You can see Tokyo Tower. They have different beautiful seating, and they have about 500 plants around that place. And I love that place because they have great champagne. The people are fantastic. The barman remembers my name and my friends' names.
Oh my goodness.
Every single time. And he remembers what they have ordered and would you like that same bottle again? It's impeccable. So that is my place that I would go. And if you want to go there and have something sparkly, I would love to do that with you.
You totally read my mind. I am so up for this.
I'm so glad someone asked me this question.
And this is something I just love, when you think about like service industry, when you go to a place and they remember your name and they remember your order, it is phenomenal. So special. It's so special.
And that's one of my hints for people too, is just make yourself unforgettable by usually through style, right? Communicate yourself through style. So they will often remember what I wore last time, right? And so I think part of that, wearing a brooch or some jewelry or a colored dress or something makes you remembered by people. So when you walk back in, they do remember you. And being remembered is actually rather important to our self-esteem.
Yeah, it really is.
But in this case, it's this particular staff member who is absolutely phenomenal. So he really stands out as the guy who just blows me away each time when he remembers everybody and what they ordered.
That is so great. Oh, okay, two quick things I want to go into. I'm really being conscious to attempt to keep this is not so long an episode. I remember the exact earrings you were wearing the last time we met in person, when we went to the New Zealand restaurant.
Oh, good.
And now I've forgotten what the second thing was that I wanted to talk
remember
about.
These ones.
So the self-esteem.
Yes.
Self-esteem. That is a topic that I would love to talk more and more and more about, but hitokotode, just in a few words, what can you say about self-esteem and the importance of that?
I think it starts from within. So being very healthy, it goes into your self-care. If you're a healthy body, you have a healthy mind and you have a healthy approach to everything that you do, literally everything you do. And then if you're healthy on the inside, it makes you healthy in the way you express yourself on the outside. I can say that from the last 3 years. In 2019, I was pretty unhappy, I think, in a larger body. I did my best to cover that up and be confident, but it was really through that weight loss, through buying, investing in more stylish clothing, colors, things like that, that really helped my self-esteem. But the most important thing then, I think, really is to be kind to yourself. Don't run yourself down, and be your best friend.
Yeah.
Don't, talk about yourself in a bad way, in a negative way. Try to always be kind to yourself and give yourself time to do that. Show self-compassion. And I'm not sure if you've had Jennifer Shinkai on before or if you plan to, but
she's on the list.
Oh, great. She talks about her self-compassion break that she has shared with people. And I think it's really magical if you talk about that with her. But being kind to yourself is what I would leave you with on that, because it does build self-esteem. And it's not every single day you feel that, but 1% changes compared to yesterday, and the way that you treat yourself will most definitely help you with your self-esteem.
Yeah. And knowing that it's normal to have low self-esteem, and it's not about where you are, it's about where you can go from now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You hit it.
Love it. So as we wrap up this episode, what else would you like to share with the Sassaga podcast listeners today, Catherine?
Well, if I might, I've got a couple of books sitting next to me that are really helpful, and I'll just show them and mention them. Oh, there's actually 3, but I won't go through them I'll go through them fast. You probably all know Atomic Habits. I talked about the 1%.
Yes.
I mean, I love this book by James Clear. It's
Absolutely
just
obsessed.
So clear. And it's one that I recommended to the lawyer who's trying to change their life after losing her hearing. The other one that I have is, of course, I've got to talk about Kamala Harris. The Truths We Hold. Her book is super amazing. I mean, she's the second most powerful woman in the free world, is she not? Right. And so I know she's a lawyer and she's the vice president of the United States, but her book is super amazing, how she went through her life. She's also had lots of struggles and overcome them. Love this book. Happy to lend it to anybody. And the other one is very different, and it's all covered in messy marks because I spilled something on it when I was back in New Zealand. The Joy of Small Things.
Oh,
this is an English writer, Hannah Jane Parkinson, and every story is only 1.5 pages long, and it is super lovely. The brilliance of mint, the brilliance of dogs in parks, secondhand bookstores, wearing a dressing gown. It's just little things. Ooh, I love this book. But aside from that, I mean, I would love to talk with anybody who wants to know more about what we've talked about today, who wants to be inspired, who's wanting to be mentored and hasn't asked somebody yet, who wants to do that kind of thing. Get in touch with me. I'd love to help. Of course, I'm a lawyer, so I want to make law approachable, so come and see me on that. But I really am trying now to help people with the things that people have asked me or told me that I'm good at. People have told me I'm very good at winning awards. How do I win an award? So I'm happy to help people with that. How do I get on a board? I'm consulting and coaching people on that. Being an MC and speaking confidently, which is your forte. But those kinds of things, how to make my LinkedIn profile look better, little things like that, which are also big things in life. That's the kind of thing I'm helping people with a lot now.
Brilliant. This is so great. I'm so happy to have this conversation with you today. All right. So there's going to be very, very juicy show notes for this episode. So we will link to everything. The best place for people to come to contact you is, where would you say?
I would say LinkedIn. On there is my direct email address, so people can contact me there. There's also a phone number, so they could send a text message. But I think contacting me and linking on LinkedIn, tell me why you want to talk, get in touch. That's probably the best. Yeah.
Excellent. Love it. All right. Thank you so much, Catherine. It has been such a pleasure. So much wisdom and inspiration.
Inspiration. That's it. That's the key thing now. Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much, Helen. It's been great. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Make it a brilliant and joyful day.